On the first day of writ, my writer friend gave me a classic hero's journey story.
On the second day of writ, my writer friend gave me 2 sequel entries
and a classic hero's journey story. On the third day of writ, my writer friend gave me 3-act structure,
2 sequel entries
and a classic hero's journey story.
On the 4th day of writ, my writer friend gave me 4 partial drafts,
3-act structure,
2 sequel entries
and a classic hero's journey story. On the 5th day of writ, my writer friend gave me 5 battling armies,
4 partial drafts,
3-act structure,
2 sequel entries
and a classic hero's journey story.
On the 6th day of writ, my writer friend gave me 6 funny sidekicks,
5 battling armies,
4 partial drafts,
3-act structure,
2 bad sequels,
and a classic hero's journey story. On the 7th day of writ, my writer friend gave me 7 basic plots,
6 funny sidekicks,
5 battling armies, hi-ya!
4 partial drafts,
3-act structure,
2 terrible sequels.
and a classic hero's journey story.
On the 8th day of writ, my writer friend gave me 8 deadly words,
7 basic plots,
6 funny sidekicks,
5 armies waging war,
4 partial drafts,
3-act structure,
2 mediocre sequels.
and a classic hero's journey story. On the 9th day of writ, my writer friend gave me 9 villainous lackeys,
8 deadly words,
7 basic plots,
6 annoying sidekicks,
5 armies going at it,
4 partial drafts,
3-act structure,
2 somewhat better sequels.
and a classic hero's journey story.
On the 10th day of writ, my writer friend gave me 10 little murder victims.
9 villainous lackeys,
I don't care what happens to these people.
7 basic plots,
6 irredeemable sidekicks.
5 armies just destroying each other. There's nothing left.
4 partial draft.
3-act structure,
2 surprisingly improved sequels.
and a classic hero's journey story. On the 11th day of writ, my writer friend gave me up to 11 craziness,
10 little murder victims.
9 villainous lackeys,
I don't care, see, it's 8 words.
7 basic plots,
6 hilarious sidekicks.
5 obliterating armies,
4 partial drafts.
3-act structure,
2 amazing sequels.
and a classic hero's journey story.
On the 12th day of writ, my writer friend gave me 12 heroic trials,
Up to 11 craziness,
10 little murder victims.
9 villainous blackies,
Seriously, these people can go to hell.
7 basic plots,
6 funny sidekicks.
5 enormous, ruthless, world-destroying armies!
4 partial drafts.
3-act structure,
2 award-winning sequels.
and a classic hero's journey story.
Encore now.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Happy Hanukkah Kwanzaa? Christmas Hanukkah Kwanzaa. There
Happy
it is.
Decemberween. Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of The Writ, the show that values writing like a fly values a dog turd.
Isn't it just?
You know, and that's not an insult. Like, flies very much value dog turds.
As I said, it's very well. I mean, our examples of classic literature probably don't agree with agreed classics of literature, but what have you?
I liked Dante's Inferno.
I love Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, but we've gone on that before about how the mnemonic we've made for that we've done.
Yeah.
But, we wrote a good mnemonic for that. And speaking of what we've written...
Hey, what way the writ would have writ? Go ahead, Donald. You're
Yes,
first.
I'm at a point in my Teslanauts book where the cast explores a bit of the local life in the city they're stationed at, namely Zurich, Switzerland.
Ooh.
It's been interesting doing the research into how that city works and what it would have been like at the time, including the vehicles and the lifestyle, like the trams
said
and the
vehicles. You had that.
Oh,
I don't know if you wanted that or not.
the venues and the lifestyle. I thought it said vehicles, but it didn't. Like the venues and the lifestyle. That was fun.
Sure.
Also, I devoted a bit more research than necessary than perhaps into the local tram system.
I mean, hey, if you're enjoying it, it's not at work, right?
Like, I just want to know how it worked. Like, funny thing is, they had electric trams even back in 1920s. Crazy, huh?
I'm sure that plays into your book quite nicely.
Yeah. It's actually funny. Since I've wrote that for the What We Have Writ, I'm well past that scene.
Behind the scenes peek that we had a pandemic-related forced break.
Oh, well,
so
as they know, because there was that break between episodes. So.
we did tell them that. But yeah, just the fact that we're doing these notes long after we prepared them. That is also old. Good gourd.
But your next one, yes.
Yeah, my next one. What did we?
Originally,
it
says more edits on season 1.
No, that's still true, but just where because I recently had a conversation with my co-author on more edits on season 1 of Starburst. We're through like episode 36 of about 45.
Originally, he said 33, guys.
Well, we got some more done while we had a conversation recently. Progress! Woo!
Yeah!
Also, per the idea I mentioned on What We Rip Off from this month, a couple weeks ago, I have established the start of the story and the basics of the characters. I'm working on their profiles now.
Right, exactly.
That to remind people who didn't listen, but really you should just go listen to that. It was episode 108 of the
Oh, yeah, of course.
But anyway, the story where I figure what's the natural end point for people who used to be thrill seekers because they were serving as heroes, and what happens to them after they lose that.
Right.
So it's kind of fun. I've determined, and I'm saying it so Donald and, hey, our listeners too, can keep me accountable.
Yes.
That I will make up for not doing Nano this year by taking all of 2021.
Sorry.
God bless you. Taking all of 2021 where I accomplish a set word count every month.
Oh, God.
Something additional, not just edits. God bless you again.
Thank you.
And maybe those ideas percolating in my brain will finally get some actual run.
Maybe.
But I do reserve the right to reduce the targets in event that I relocate for job, school, whatever.
Excuses.
Or get my career started. I did not say to 0. I just said adjust the target.
Okay, to 1 then.
For example, we are recording this in December. I have a goal of writing 10,000 words on something new this month.
All right, cool. Is that going to be the same every month or just for
No,
December?
I'm going to base it on what the month looks like. So this month, my family is hoping, we'll see if it actually goes, we're hoping to take a trip to Mexico and celebrate Christmas.
Yeah, that's right.
So if we go and I'm with my family, it's going to be hard to kind of sequester time to do some writing. So
that'd be cool though,
to
write on a Mexican beach or something.
Well, I tell you what, I don't want to take a computer anywhere near a beach. But
come on. Okay, fine, get a notebook. Write it like the old days.
The old-fashioned. Actually, it's a fun story. For Nano one year, I did a story where a guy was in Mexico, so it's kind of ironically coming full circle.
You're living your NaNoWriMo stories.
Well, if I was living my NaNoWriMo stories, I'd have a girlfriend to write to because that was part of the plot. But anyway.
If I was living my stories, I'd be a dinosaur already.
Well, what is the bumper sticker on your car if history repeats itself? I'm getting a dinosaur.
I'm getting a dinosaur. I don't become one.
I said it right.
No, I know. It's okay, fine.
But anyway, I may end up having to adjust the target because I'm having trouble getting started. Like we're recording this on December. We're recording this early December before I leave.
Mm-hmm.
By the time it posts, I'll be gone.
That's true.
So maybe I'll have gotten more progress on or not. But
maybe or not. It is quite the cliffhanger to know whether or not we're going to do that. You're going
I
to do that.
wasn't done.
And speaking of,
I wasn't done.
Fine.
Jerk.
Fine, go ahead.
He's trying to make up for losing the last 2 episodes.
Yes. All right, fine. When you got to say first.
Right. So what I was going to say is because sometimes you won't hit your target, but the fact that I'm still determined to get something progress made every month, in terms of thousands words, not maybe tens of thousands. We'll see what happens. But
Right.
just to make up for the fact that I didn't do Nano this year. So I'm looking forward to that. Also, I feel like I can finally mention I did some recording of a podcast.
Ooh, yes, another podcast.
A different podcast that I'm working on. I've probably mentioned it before, but it's just going to be a nerd haven. We're going to have a lot of fun, and we did record a lot of stuff and had a great time with it. So
What's the podcast called?
Great. While it's not currently available for consumption because I still need to learn by fire about how to edit everything.
It's fun.
The podcast.
I'm not editing it for you, by the way.
No, I wasn't going to ask you to do that, although I would ask for your tips on editing. But anyway, the podcast will be called Nerds Are Us.
Yes.
And the idea is like the dearly departed Toys R Us store and the still existing Babies R Us.
Babies R Us is still around?
Babies R Us is still around.
Wow, that's
even
weird.
In the States.
The spin-off lasted longer than the original.
But in Japan, Toys R Us still has stores. Go figure that out.
I guess that's true.
Anyway, Nerds Are Us, I guess the joke is that we're an ever-growing store, and we're still trying to find your aisle of fandom. So please come in.
All right.
Some similar, very, very bad store-related puns, and we just talk about things we love to talk about, and it's a whole lot of fun. So we did do some recording on that. I have to get the editing done before I can even get it out. But hey, it's something I created. I'm really, really excited.
Well, that is cool. Will he get the editing done, or will it never be released? Find out in the next episode. And speaking of which...
Well, probably not the next episode of the Writ, but we are talking about that kind of ending, which is called a cliffhanger. The heroes fight the bad guy, but gasp! They lose!
Yes.
The villains have the heroes on the ropes, but gasp! The story cuts off. Okay, over there?
I gasped too many times.
You gasped a little too hard
Felt
inside your
the spit
mask.
just flying back into my throat.
But the story cuts off right there. Cliffhanger endings can be really aggravating, but they also can really, really hype people up for the next installment.
Yes, indeed.
Even if it's not literally direct followed by like Avengers 3. Anyone?
Yeah, Avengers Infinity War. But then we had to wait for Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel before we got to...
Moving past the resolution of that cliffhanger, what are ways to make these stories satisfying despite the unresolved ending?
If you provide a lot of cool moments and satisfying arcs for characters, you can get around the inherent abruptness of a cliffhanger ending.
Mm-hmm.
If you show the characters going through a lot and doing everything they can and giving them small victories despite their overall defeat, it can still make the installment entertaining.
Sure.
Build up the excitement and show the villain's power, meaning that when they succeed this time, it can feel earned rather than forced.
Mm-hmm.
There's a twist on the whole Deus Ex Machina trope. I don't know if you've heard this, called Diabolus Ex Machina.
No. Devil of the machine.
Basically, instead of God of the machine, it's Devil of the machine.
Yep.
Which is rather than something coming out of the blue to save the day, something comes out of the blue to ruin the day. Like the villain just suddenly out of the blue wins.
That's not rewarding at all.
Yeah, don't do that. No Ex Machinas are good.
I mean, machines aren't inherently bad, but if they come out of left field, it's not planned properly.
And you know the movie Ex Machina with Oscar Isaacs? It's no good. No, actually, I'm sure it's great.
I think his name is Oscar Isaac, but okay.
Okay.
You said it like there were multiple Isaacs. There aren't. Anyway.
I thought for sure it was Oscar Isaacs, but...
Well, there are other actors that might have the name Isaacs, but Oscar
Maybe
Isaac, the one who played Poe Dameron, amongst other recent characters, and Apocalypse and that X-Men stuff, it's just one. It's a singular form.
I thought it was Oscar Isaacs, but what do I know? And also, Ex Machina I've heard is a great film, so that's not... So, never mind. I haven't seen it, but I'm sure...
But what do we know?
But so basically, make it so that when the villain wins this battle, it's deserved. Like, you can see how he won it, even though you're like, oh, come on, heroes, you can do it, maybe. No. But that'll also make it so that when the heroes win in the next installment, the catharsis will be off the charts.
Crying out in the theater when they had the massive assembly in Avengers Endgame.
Yes, indeed. That's basically the way to do it right. Like, that's the main benefit of a cliffhanger ending, I feel.
Sure. I actually did a little bit of cheating because I tend to get long-winded. So after writing my notes, the TLDL version, by the way, that L stands for listen. Too long didn't listen. Make the story engaging on its own, and then drop the reward of an immediate sequel.
Yeah.
Now for the slightly longer answer. Maybe it's a bit too on the nose, but if you treat a trilogy like a 3-act structure...
Yes.
3-act structure, because that's this episode. That basically answers this question. Each act needs a tentpole moment, some consistent growth, enough to help the audience root for your main cast and steady motion towards the climax.
Right.
Sure, that is grand to assume you need 3 books rather than any other number. 18, am I right?
How many books are the Animorph series?
54.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Plus extras.
Calm down there.
Plus extras. Well, and this isn't the place to talk about things. Well, I guess it is a good place to talk about. These installments do need to be entertaining on their own.
Yes, it
But
does.
obviously, there's larger motion towards the end.
Right.
And each entry needs to be satisfying in its own way. Weird. It's like I should have just read my notes. Damn. Sometimes I have smart moments, okay?
Sometimes we're smart. Sometimes we're complete idiots.
That is definitely true. While there's no accounting for taste in multi-entry series, like some people will like 2 better than 3, and that's not consistent across the group of fans, Each installment deserves the tender love and care.
Oh, that's what TLC means. I thought it meant the Learning Channel.
Well, there is a channel named TLC that is supposed to be the Learning Channel. But anyway, to earn favorite status, the old phrase that everything is someone's favorite.
Everything is someone's favorite.
If you accomplish this, where each entry is satisfying itself, giving a cliffhanger that compels the reader to find the next book quick as possible, that's just gravy for you, but you're also doing it justice.
Yeah, exactly. I think one of the most important things to keep in mind, you can't write a cliffhanger like this is half an installment. This is a complete installment that has an ending that end up not going right. Even though it might technically be half of an installment.
Well, I'm thinking about the trend towards 2 films for adapting certain books, as instance.
Right, which they stopped, thankfully, after
Twilight and Harry Potter did it.
Well, and also the big kicker was the Divergent series tried to do it, but the first one of the second part of the 2-part thing bombed so hard they never released the second part. So that series as a whole will forever be unfinished.
You find that amusing, but my heart cries out for the creators who obviously wanted to do it justice, but they weren't given the opportunity.
If they just done it as a single one, even if that one had bombed, at least it was over.
Well, and the trick with turning any book into film, and I think we have talked about it before, so I'll keep it brief, that runtime is not a problem with books.
No. You can have books as long as you want, like Stephen King does.
But if you turn it into that same length on a movie screen, nobody's going to want to sit through it. So you have to find a way to cut it down, to break it up, and the changes in adapting stuff sometimes don't hit.
Right.
Whether it's, we obviously need more than 1 film to do this entire story. Is
the only time
justified?
The only time that was justified that they need more than 1 film to do that was the Harry Potter one. That was the first one. So all the other ones just to double the amount of money. So that's why I laugh at the Divergent one, because that was just greedy executives being like, we got to split this up to make more money, and then it ended up backfiring on them.
These things happen.
So
how many hooks should the story leave to keep the readers intrigued for what's to come? This could be like a number. This could be just a weight thing relative to the plot. Like a ray of hope for the heroes in a mostly terrible outcome.
Like, don't leave too many, as then that can overshadow the defeat and make it easy for the reader to figure out how they're going to get out of this situation.
Spider-Man had a sequel coming when he disintegrated on Avengers Infinity War. I'm sorry.
That's true. There was the theory that it took place before Infinity War, but after Homecoming, so... But that theory ended up not being true. But I'm also talking about, like the main ray of hope in that ending was Captain Marvel. And the fact that all the Avengers, the OG Avengers, were still around. But Nick Fury called Captain Marvel, so we knew a really powerful hero was coming, but that was like it. So...
Well, and the distinct difference that she was not involved in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Film hadn't debuted yet.
Right.
And so suddenly, hey, we have this person that we can call on when we need it. I mean, it kind of screams Ex Machina, but it obviously isn't.
Well, it could have been one if they had written it poorly, but thankfully they didn't, so. But if you leave some key questions in the reader's minds, like not answers, but questions, They'll be left speculating like crazies what the answers to those questions already are. But please keep in mind, though, that when giving the readers questions, you should already have the answers for them. None of this J.J. Abrams mystery box crap.
Well, I was about to say, should we invoke George R.R. again?
I don't know. I say that he's never going to finish it. He still could. I'm open to him.
I hope he does.
Yeah, I'm open to the fact that he might do it. But with J.J. Abrams, he explicitly says that when he writes those mystery boxes, he doesn't come up with the answer first. He comes up with the question.
I seem to remember when we talked about writing mysteries that you need to have the answer and then basically work backwards. Am I remembering that wrong?
Exactly. That's exactly what you got to do. But J.J. Abrams was like, oh, no, it's all about the question. Like,
okay.
That's just like...
It's not the right kind of showmanship.
No, it's just like snake oil sort of thing, selling you something that's not there. So, anyways, it's what ruined Lost. It's what ruined Star Wars. Just don't do it.
I'm not sure that characterizing a ray of hope counts as a true hook in the sense I define hooks to like a new story, but there needs to be some shocking moment.
Yes.
A scary-looking fall, uncertain whereabouts of a lead character, indeterminate course of action that you will build from in the next installment.
Right.
Soon as we see someone go missing, we're desperate to find out how that happened, how to rescue them, at least in my favorite archetype of media, etc., etc. Different from the first ep in our set with mostly resolved endings, the whole point is to build impetus going to a new novel.
Right, exactly.
Take it to a point that demands resolution, and simply end it there to resume later.
That's one way to do it, yes.
Bonus points if it's less immediate when you pick back up, implying some motion from the characters towards a resolution in the interim.
Right.
I don't know if you need more than one hook in this regard.
That's true. But...
So, like, when yes, seeing the things end where he's falling off the cliff... Literally the cliff, or
that's a
literally
cliff faller, not a cliffhanger.
So fine, literally hanging on the cliff, and then the next one opens up, and he's in a cast because of the fall.
That's not satisfying.
It's not satisfying, but I also think it's still better than like you have to suddenly open on the actual fall and how he's rescued and stuff.
Right.
Because that means time has passed, and there's theoretically some motion that happened already, and you can kind of shortcut the process a bit.
That reminds me of an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where at the end of season 4, I believe, had the main character framed for a crime he didn't commit and sent to prison.
Mm-hmm.
And
Season 5 opens.
Season 5 opens with his best friend on the force, imagining... at first you think this is just... Okay, so what happens is it goes back to the precinct, and this guy comes back. It's like, oh, hey, I'm back. It's like, wait, what happens? Like, oh, no, it's fine. We all worked it out. I'm not going to prison. Everything's all right. And you're like, yay. Yeah. And you think, oh, no, that was just their way to write themselves out of that, right? But then it turns out, then this friend of this main character who adulates this main character and so much, you realize that it's his dream, because this guy's like, oh, and by the way, we got us tickets to go to Disneyland, not with my girlfriend, but with my friend Boyle. And we're going to go on all the rides together and take all these pictures. It's going to be great. Everyone loves you, right, Boyle? Everyone's like, Boyle. Then he wakes up. It's like, oh, it was all a dream.
Darn it.
And he's still in prison.
Why did I have to wake up?
So, that was a funny way to make it seem like, oh, they just wrote the resolution off screen. No, they didn't.
Well, you should, depending on what that major thing is, writing the resolution off screen is not great, right?
Mm-hmm. No, it's not. No, you got.
But if there's a place that you can go ahead in time such that you're still seeing them work their way back past the cliffhanger that you left, it's not like you have to write the immediate seconds after the next thing as the beginning of your next book, is what I think. And I think that's, more... I think that's a clever way to not make the next one too long, also.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
If there's a place that you can do it. And I seem to recall that the Endgame started later on. Like, there was a gap.
There was they said when they rescued Tony, it was 22 days since Thanos snapped. And then they went to try and confront Thanos. Turns out he destroyed the stones. Then the cuts to 5 years later.
Well, that I'm not referring to like another cut within. I'm just referring to a cut between the cliff and the very beginning of the next installment? Like, do you start it at the cliff, or do you start it removed from the event?
Well,
That's what I'm referring to.
Well, the movie.
So yeah, yes, if it's 22 days, and that's the scene they open Endgame with, which I don't recall.
The actual opening is with Hawkeye's family, which I guess happens right as the snap happens. So
yeah, it had to.
And then the next scene is Tony and Nebula on the Benatar, trying to fly back home, and they're already in space. So while the last movie ended with them stranded on Titan. So
right. So there's a little bit of time there, and obviously, because they had to consider the runtime of the movie, that they skipped ahead 5 years, and obviously there wasn't that much important stuff happening anyway.
Well, I know one criticism that Last Jedi got, speaking of new Star Wars stuff, compared
Speaking
to
of J.J. Abrams.
Oh, The Last Jedi wasn't J.J. Abrams. It wasn't necessarily his decision, and this was Rian Johnson. One of the criticisms it got was that it started right after Force Awakens. Like, The Force Awakens ended with Rey encountering Luke and holding the lightsaber out, and that was the end. And then Last Jedi opens up with him taking the lightsaber. So, instead of it just being like...
I mean, that's being too literal about the cliffhanger thing.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, they are on a cliff. It's a cliff island.
but that's what I'm referring to. That's why I think I give stuff like that bonus points, because why do we need to see something that's so obvious that that's probably going to be the resolution?
Yeah.
You know, and I suppose it depends on how shocking this event.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that makes a difference. If it's actually falling off a cliff from the hang from the previous, then maybe it makes sense to see the fall. But if it's Luke just accepting the lightsaber back, come on, we figure he was probably going to do it.
I know. Well, that's why they had the joke, the hilarious joke of him just throwing it behind him. So,
anyway, if you are placing a hook in, are you obligated as a writer to have plans on a sequel, or simply a follow-up to the dangle that may not be another book?
I mean, yeah, I think so, of course. Now, circumstances may come where you write a cliffhanger ending, but then it's not successful enough for a follow-up to be made.
Divergent.
Like I was going to say, the Divergent one. But usually it doesn't happen for books, more for movies,
Divergent.
TV shows, or video games. Otherwise, if
Ratchet and Clank Future.
Oh, no, that one, it had a cliffhanger ending, but they did resolve it, so... But otherwise, if you write a cliffhanger ending and don't follow up on it, you're kind of being an a-hole for no good reason. Like, there are some people who shall remain nameless that I've accused of doing this before, but really I say there's no excuse. You control what you prioritize. You hear that, Martin? Well, I mean, random unknown author.
Or remaining nameless, right. I mean... I mentioned explicitly that this is supposed to be different from the first step in our set, where if you have a cliffhanger, you're inevitably planning for a sequel, right?
Right.
Like, it should be inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
It should be.
Like Thanos says, I am inevitable. And he meant by that the sequel to Avengers. The sequel to Infinity War.
For this major kind of cliffhanger, why would you pave the road if you weren't expecting to move forward on it?
That's true.
Going back to a hook, a la what we talked about a couple weeks ago, I suppose you should have some inkling of what would happen. Take the post facto posts regarding lingering mysteries in popular media from the original creators as an example. That kind of thing is them exploring the logical end in their plan for the little carrot dangling there. You probably
Speaking of rabbits,
you need that. Well, you're the one who brought it up. I was going to leave it be.
Oh, I just thought we mentioned rabbits the last 2 episodes, and then we got to bring up
So now
this.
we're going to have to try and bring it up in the next one,
Yes!
too? God dang it.
This is the special Lagomorphs sub-series of, not paleobites, of Ritwit. I did release an episode, Neurolagus Rex, about a giant prehistoric rabbit, so...
That kind of... I read that one already. You probably need that, unless you plan to disappoint any people asking about the follow-up, right?
Right.
So, if you have a cliffhanger, but you decide that for some ungodly reason, you know what, I am done. Even though I left this massive thing right here. I'm just going to let that sit. I'll write a little blog post about it and call it good.
That sucks. It's so bad.
Well, if you have enough fans that they get up in arms about it, then that's one thing. But, I mean, if it's somebody like me, never even published, and I just decided to give up on something, which is not good to be given up on it, but hey, nobody's going to have too much outrage.
Right, I guess that's true. But
however, here's a strange thought. Leave it cliffy. Never publish anything except a little summary of what you had planned when announcing you had moved on.
Why?
See just how many strains of fans you'll enrage by doing this.
Yeah.
That's the fun part.
Yeah,
but unless,
why?
But unless the hook itself is inconsequential world building only, you should do it with the intent of paying it off.
Exactly.
I mean, yes, maybe your life doesn't, the circumstances around your life don't allow you to have the time to put proper investment in a book. And maybe you let them sit forever, like we mentioned Earth's Children a couple episodes ago, where the final installment was published like decades later.
Well, no, they were all released in like 7 or 8 years apart, to the point where when it got to that point, it was like 30 years later anyway.
Right. So look at the author of that series, Jean M. Aul. For those of you who've never heard of Earth's Children before, go look it up. She took years to resolve to find the next installment. Now imagine if it was a Cliffy. And she didn't give up on it.
That'd be nice, but I don't know if any of them.
But
are
I don't
think
any of them particularly.
Yeah, I think they're all single episode sort of things. Like they're all episodic. So.
But if you have plans on it, why would you just punt on those?
I don't know. You hear that, Martin? Nah, he could do it. He could still do it.
He's probably not punted on his plans. He just not sure where to go.
I have faith in you, Martin. You can do it. I believe in you. Come on, little guy. Or
plans can change after all.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it further.
Anyways, it is definitely true that we are guilty of grandiose delusions here at the Writ Wit, such that all of our stories simply must be multi-part sagas.
I mean, that's how it's fun, yes.
Sometimes a story does not deserve or need a sequel hook, though. So when is too much? And how do you balance the compulsion to leave something with the reality you might not ever use that hanger?
Well, how big or how small the narrative is entirely up to the writer, but there are some story ideas that naturally lend themselves more to once-offs or a big interconnected saga.
So the two ends of the scale there.
Yeah,
right?
basically. But if you drag it on a bit too long, the saga can seem rather tiresome.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, there are super long runners in fiction, but those tend to be more episodic in nature and rarely part of a big, interconnected, continuous story.
I'm trying to figure out where Wheel of Time rates on this.
Because
he's published so many entries over so many years, and it's kind of, I guess, I don't know for sure, but still going kind of thing.
Well, like if someone could name a super long running work of fiction that's continuous and all part of a
Days of Our Lives!
Yeah, I was actually going to say One Piece.
Oh, okay. Speaking of the mangaka, the author of that, from the same prefecture that I lived in, but apparently he has announced that it will end within 5 years or something.
5 years? Hasn't it been going on for like 30 years at this point?
No, it's 20-something, but the point
excuse me, I'm sorry.
But this latest grand gesture is apparently he's got like a 5-year plan, and then it's over. So we already know that.
For now.
Plans can be changed after all.
He is altering the deal. Pray he... Actually, no, at this point, pray he does alter it. We want more One Piece.
I've never read it, seen it. I mean, I know of it, of course. You can't avoid it.
When I was at my college...
For somebody like me who likes to see things from the beginning, I just want it to end, and only then will I consider actually watching the thing, because
hey, you remember when you
got
so
much.
Remember when you got on to me about that for Harry Potter, but now you're doing the same damn thing?
I'm not worried about whether he lives or dies, but I just don't... Like, there's so much out there. I'm not sure where to start. You had no excuse for that.
I think I had an excuse, but... Anyways, certain genres... Oh, wait, no, that's you.
Stop reading my notes.
That's it for this week. No. That's me reading that note, but it's not that note. Continue. What is your answer to this question? Oh, Mr. David, sir. He's preparing himself. He just took a big sip of water.
Certain genres don't lend themselves to multi-entry stories. There is such a thing as overextending your welcome.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything else, you need to know how many tomes this series will have before you get too far in,
mm-hmm.
or run the risk of meddling and major changes to your story during the process.
Right, of course.
If you're done with the characters, whether that's warranted completely by events in the narrative or not, probably not a great thing to lace a ton of ideas that could be derived into something else if
Probably
you don't
not.
plan to do it.
Yeah.
I think balancing that compulsion is not too hard if you've lost interest in the universe, because you're probably not putting much in there at that point.
Right.
Otherwise, maybe it's wise to lessen the amount of potentials that you didn't address so it doesn't become overwhelming to move ahead into some other project. Like, if you leave yourself a ton of ideas and you're like, oh, but maybe I should do this, but your heart of hearts is saying, hey, I should move on to something else. It's time to let this go. And that way it doesn't, siren call you back into doing the same thing over and over again without growing anywhere else as a writer.
That's me with Megazoic. I should stop. I have stopped.
Maybe it's lessen the number of things that might incite you to do more if you truly believe you're done with it. Now, only you as the creator can decide that.
Right.
Unless you're like a TV show writer, which I'm sorry. If you're done with that, then maybe you should find another show to work on.
That's true.
But I mean, again, we talk about creative agency a lot in the last set. If you have it, then you know exactly where you want to end and how to get there and how to handle it best. If it means 6 books, great. Don't run out of steam before 6.
Yeah, it's true. That is the worry right now.
If you plan for 30 episodes, don't leave yourself with enough material for another 10 episodes at the end of 30 when you said you were done.
You got to figure out how to stretch out your story to fit the quota that you're trying to set for yourself. So,
or willingly alter said quota.
Just make sure it comes across as natural, yes.
Yeah, that'd be the thing. Anyway.
Well,
possible.
All right, well, that's it for this week. I'd say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you guys at this point.
Hopefully you're enjoying the season with your loved ones safely. And hopefully the new year brings some joy to you and your family. And thanks for listening to the Writ.
Yes.
Huge thank you to all our patrons.
Yes, indeed.
Especially.
What a wonderful Christmas present it would be if we got some more patrons, guys. Give us a Christmas present, please.
Wow, shill yourself out.
Please.
For more on that,
I'll take anything. I'll literally prostitute my... No, I'm just kidding.
Go check out patreon.com/Matthew Donald for more information on that.
Yes.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, what's the email address for
It's
that?
mattd@MatthewDonCreator.com. You can, if on social media, you can follow me at MatthewDonCreator on Facebook, at MatthewDon64 on Twitter, and MatthewDon64 on Instagram. Why 64? The